Good morning. Welcome to the Commissioners' meeting for March 15th, 2023. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to start off, as we've been doing past few months now, with some employee recognition. This is a way to honor those employees who have hit milestones here as county employees, thanking them for their work and recognizing them. We have, again, 2,400 employees, roughly, who work for the county, and as they do amazing work day in, day out, and really kind of keep things going. And since many people don't really know a whole lot about county government, for the most part, they're working anonymously. They don't really get the attention they deserve, and so we like to do this kind of recognition so we can at least have them, get a little bit of face time, and if they want to say a few words, they're welcome to do that too. So we do have 6 people we're honoring. Only 5 could be here today. From Department of Corrections, Paul Falcone is celebrating 20 years. He's not able to be here. But what I'll do is I'll kind of run through all 5 of these, and the rest I think are here. And so if they would like to sort of stand up as we call their name, and we can give them a round of applause, and then if they would like to speak, that's great. And we also have some things for them here. So from Main Courts, Karen Germeroth. Also Main Courts, David Gomez. Neshaminy Manor, Ann Kapralik. From the Youth Center, Broderick President. And Department of Corrections, Franklin Williams. So, all right, okay, thank you. And I should have stated, Ms. Germeroth is celebrating 20 years, Mr. Gomez, 20 years, Ms. Kapralik, 20 years, Mr. President, 30 years, and Mr. Williams, 20 years. And so we do have some things up here. If anybody wants to speak, you don't have to speak if you don't want to. But if you'd just rather come up, we'd love to have you come on up, and we have some things for you here. Oh, here, Diane. Franklin, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Congratulations. I think this one's yours. Yeah. And that's it. That's great. And I think we're going to do this. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So of the many industries that keep this county going, our hospitality and tourism industry is a major one. And we are honored to have with us the team from Visit Bucks County. They've been coming over the past couple of years just to give us updates on how things are going here in the county with regards to hospitality and tourism. And we have Paul Bencivengo here, who is going to lead off the presentation. So thank you for being here. Mr. Bencivengo.
Thank you to the commissioners and everyone at the county. We really appreciate the support in the tourism and hospitality industry. And I have some of our leadership team here with Heather, Lisa, and Kelly behind me to give a quick update. Next slide. on Visit Bucks County, what we do, how we do it, and the impacts that visitor spending has in the county. So we promote everything there is to see and do visitor-friendly in Bucks County. And we don't just promote for leisure travel, consumer travel. We also market to weddings, special events, which are big business in the county, meetings, bus groups, and sports tournaments. We have half of our team is on the marketing team. We have industry relations and a visitor services department as well. And we are not membership-based anymore. We were back in the day. In 2017, we eliminated that. And we now promote more than 1,400, again, independent hospitality visitor-facing businesses in Bucks County. Next slide. So again, we promote all there is to see and do throughout the county. Next slide. If you don't remember anything from today, or at least from what I'm saying, please remember these three important numbers. So these are 2021 numbers. We're still waiting on the 2022 numbers. These are still rebounding from the impacts prior to COVID. But in 2021, we had 7.5 million people visit Bucks County. A visitor is someone that drives more than 50 miles or stays overnight. They drive less than 50 miles but stay overnight, that's a visitor. Or they drive more than 50 miles, that's a visitor. So we had 7.5 million people that generated $1 billion in economic impact for Bucks County. And they support a total hospitality workforce of 25,000 jobs. And that's what why we exist, and it's why we do what we do, is to generate economic impact for the county. Next slide. We wanted to share this because a lot of times people don't think, oh, I'm not in the hospitality business. So that $900 million in economic impact breaks into two. Direct spending of someone walking right into the Fonthill or right into a restaurant and spending money, but also all the support services, landscapers, cleaning supply companies, any supply chain organization that's supporting the hospitality industry is also part of that economic impact. And we know the county is made up of so many small businesses. And again, it's $1 billion in economic impact that visitors come, next slide, when they come and stay here in Bucks County. And I'm going to bring Heather Walter up, who's the marketing director, to talk about how we entice people to come visit Bucks County. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, I'm Heather Walter. I'm the marketing director of Visit Bucks County. I'm honored to be able to market this beautiful county that's my hometown. And hopefully some of you are already familiar with us. Maybe you follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is @VisitBucksPA. Oh, and next slide, by the way. Thank you. We also expanded in the last year into the TikTok and YouTube spaces, really to go after that Gen Z audience and to attract more millennials, or more Gen Z and young families to the area. And you may have seen our newest content creator, Claudia, in TikTok or on YouTube. She is who we've coined our local tourist, and she's out and about creating lots of video content for us and posting it on our social media channels. But really, you may see some of our marketing here locally, but the large majority of our marketing, as Paul mentioned, is in the outer markets. And that's really to drive overnight visitation. So our target markets are New York, Northern New Jersey, Washington, D.C., and then a bit closer to home with Philadelphia, Lehigh Valley, and the Harrisburg areas. And we use a variety of marketing tactics in those areas, everything from television, both broadcast and streaming. And you may have seen our television commercials here. We do actually run some of those locally as well. Also, we run billboards, and we have digital strategy, including paid search and Google AdWords, that we also run in all of these target markets. You can go to the next slide. This past year, we hit a major milestone in page views to our website, to visitbuckscounty.com. So we hit 5.38 million page views. Our last highest was 3 million, so that's a whole lot of additional traffic and visitation to visitbuckscounty.com. We're really lucky that we have endless content. It's probably one of our biggest challenges as marketers is how do we talk about all of the great things there are to see to do here in Bucks County. But we rely on our visitor services and our industry relations team to canvass the county and tell the marketing team about our new businesses, all of our events, and our new attractions. And here to share more of that is our industry relations and visitor services director, Lisa Pagliasetti.
Thank you, Heather. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. I am Lisa Paglissetti, Industry Relations and Visitor Services Director. So what exactly does that mean? My team works with the tourism and hospitality businesses in the county. So the lodging properties, your attractions like the Michener, the Mercer, Font Hill, all over the county, from the top of the county to the bottom, to educate them on utilizing Visit Bucks County as a resource, making sure they share with us the events and special offers that they're providing visitors so we can share that with the marketing team who then puts it out to the world. My team also works with the visitor. We do that in a couple ways. We have someone 7 days a week that can take questions via email, phone, and live chat. And we're also meeting the visitor where they are. And I'm sorry, next slide. So here we are right in Doylestown at the Arts Festival, but we go all over inside and outside of the county to festivals, trade shows, and events. And at these events, we are meeting with leisure travelers, we're meeting with wedding couples, meeting planners, group tour planners, all sharing with them information on why they should have their next event or trip or meeting here in Bucks County. We also work with the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association and U.S. Travel to advocate for the industry. We get information from these two organizations that we can share with the tourism and travel businesses in the county on information and legislation that may affect them. We also work with our elected officials here in the county and the state on pro-business, travel business legislation. And next slide. Each year, one way that we celebrate the travel and tourism businesses in the county is through National Travel and Tourism Week, which is, it started with U.S. Travel 40 years ago. And this is a week where we can share with everyone why tourism in your county is important and what the economic impact is. And you saw that slide that Paul shared with the numbers. It's job creation, it's spending. But each year we celebrate by awarding individuals and organizations in the travel and tourism industry with awards. Our commissioners help us out at this event by presenting these awards, but if you do anything today besides remembering the slide that Paul had showed you with the economic impact numbers, please visit this website, visitbuckscounty.com/tourism week, and nominate an awesome tourism professional or organization that's bringing business to the county. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Keeling to tell you a little bit more about how we're working in the county.
Thank you, Lisa. Next slide, please. Good morning, I'm Kelly Keeling. I'm the Senior Research and Destination Development Manager for Visit Bucks County. And one example for how we support growth within the industry is through the Bucks County Tourism Grant Program. This program is in partnership with the County of Bucks, and a 6-member grant committee assesses the applications and determines the awards. Since its inception in 2008, the program has distributed more than $6 million to more than 120 hospitality organizations. And the projects supported by the program are for tourism marketing, product development, the enhancement of attractions, special events, festivals, and events. And all of these projects are designed to enhance existing tourism assets or create new with the goal of driving additional overnight stays. Next slide. Enhancing Bucks County's tourism assets or creating new is important to ensure that the county continues to evolve as a tourism destination. New product means new reasons for first time and repeat visitation. Over the last few years, Visit Bucks County has taken a more proactive approach at looking to also create new product. And as we've looked to create new, we've really leaned into research and data to analyze visitor trends and patterns to identify new product opportunities. So here you see on this slide, this is one example. This is the Bucks County Ale Trail. We created this a few years ago. The way it works is when a visitor goes to 5 breweries and checks in, they earn a free t-shirt. And there's been over 6,000 completions of that to date. Next slide. And then a second example is the newly launched Bucks County Wine and Art Trail. This is where we've paired wine and art. You can go to the wineries and see art on display that was created at the wineries. And again, works in a similar way where you go to 5 locations, you check in, and you earn a set of fine art note cards. We've created these trails to motivate craft beer and wine and art enthusiasts to come and visit Bucks County, but also to get people moving around the county. Beyond highlighting the awesome breweries and wineries that we have here, these trails get people moving around and experiencing all there is to see and do in Bucks County in between their trail stops. And we encourage locals to get out and enjoy the trails as well. Invite your friends and family to join you from outside the region and get out and enjoy the trails together. And so I'll invite Paul to come back up to close.
Next slide. Again, thank you very much. And again, we appreciate the county's support in seeing us as a part of the pie in the live, work, and play environment that we have here in Bucks County. We work closely with the other economic development agencies and meet once a month with the commissioners to talk about how we can collaborate. And you all can read this, but I think it helps kind of put into context of how hospitality is a part of, again, the fabric of Bucks County. So we'll start on the blue because that's where the visit people. But if you build a place where people want to visit, you build a place where people want to live. If you build a place where people want to live, you build a place where people want to work. If you build a place where people want to work, you'll build a place where business needs to be. And if you build a place where business has to be, you'll build a place where people have to visit. So you can start anywhere on that continuum. And again, we hope it just drives home the message that we love what we do, and we're a part of the fabric here again in Bucks County. Thank you very much. Happy St. Patty's Day. Right? Agreed.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any comments or questions for the team before they're just about ready to leave.
Just a comment, maybe. Paul, I don't know if you'd like to comment on that, but I think we got some good news. This past week, Bensalem Township just voted to approve at the site of Parks Casino, a 300-room hotel with a restaurant up top with facilities for weddings and different events for groups, organizations. I mean, I think it's going to really be that'll put you over $1 billion when that gets up and running.
Yeah, it's a great new experience. I think that's coming to Bucks County. And there's no doubt since the Excite Center has opened, that area of the county has definitely seen an increase in overnight stays to the area. So it will definitely bring, again, a new experience. And there's also a lot of meeting space. So it provides an opportunity for meetings, special events that maybe couldn't fit somewhere in the county. They'll now, I think it's 14,000 square feet of meeting space and up to 800 people. So that's definite economic impact to the county.
Yep. Good thing, good for the county.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Oh,
Thank you for just being great partners. We've worked together a lot over the years, so thank you.
yeah. Now you obviously put together a great team who do invaluable work. So we really appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you in May.
Sure.
Tourism Week.
Yes, thank you. All right, moving on with our agenda, moving to public comments. Before we get into public comment, just one change, a minor change on the agenda. Number 3, item 3A, corrections, the Aramark Facility Services. The dates for this contract should be 4/1/23 to 3/31/26. So it's just a minor change there, just to make people aware of before we start off here. Okay. All right, again, reminder that people speaking on agenda items are asked to speak on agenda items themselves. This is a place to ask specific questions about a specific agenda item, and so we ask you to stick to that rule. General comments can be made later on in the meeting during the general comment period. First name on the list is Sean Duffy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here on behalf of Durham Township. I'm one of the solicitors there. And they requested that there's an agenda. I know this is an agenda item. Should I wait for that? Or
No, this is
okay,
it.
so
This is
this is the
Yep.
agenda item.
Yep.
Okay, I believe it's agenda item number 7 in regard to bridge number 226. So last night, the Board of Supervisors voted to direct me to appear here to respectfully request that the board deny that bid proposal. Specifically, there are concerns with, I guess, that were raised by the board along with several residents within the township regarding the design of the bridge, specifically the center pier, and the concern that it would have additional collection of debris which would exacerbate flooding in that specific area. So pending your questions, that's all I have for the board this morning.
I have a quick question, but can I ask that? Has your township engineer been out to look at this? I tried to ask that question and never got an answer.
So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I'm not exactly sure. I just know that in the board's review, along with the review from several residents, they raised the concern, and the board felt that it necessitated just a request to the board here this morning.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. Typically, what we usually do is we'll go through all the comments and answer at the end of the
Okay,
hearing.
perfect.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. Ed Mackhouse?
Get the time set up and reset. Reset the time?
Yeah, well, he's working on it.
Okay. Ed Mackhouse from Buckingham Township. My training's physics. I had 10 years of teaching. I'd like to comment on some agenda items. I'm not here to criticize. I believe in bipartisan government and that we should, all of us here want to contribute to make things better. So the question is how to make things better, and there's some items that are debatable. So I'm not a politician, I'm not taking sides, but I'll say what my recommendations are. Like for children, mental health, drugs. So how do we deal with this? And LGBT questions. How do we deal with these mental issues? I think it's a cooperative approach with parents, teachers, children, and that teachers have the responsibility, and when we're dealing with this, to bring people together. So the minor children could confide to the teachers if they want to be gay or what have you, but parents have the responsibility to take care of the children, and so they should not recommend that they come out without parental knowledge or permission, because you cannot win debates on religion, politics, and stuff. And so the fact that other children may be quiet may not meet consent, and you could cause more conflicts. There's an issue about gun violence. The violence comes from criminals, and any issues, problems on gun violence should be directed that you overlook that people who are defending themselves may make mistakes, and you give them privilege over their children. There's a law. One of the things about here is law. I live near Frog Farm where they're doing mulching things, and it's causing a lot of children, people to be sick. They may have stopped a little bit of it, but if there's litigation there, I think that should be on there. I want to keep the farm preservations. I want to keep the farms running, preserve the farms, but I want them to be economically viable. I don't want them to be burning mulch and stuff, which causes toxic chemicals there. So I believe in a merit system, a system that's based on merit and not politics, and I think that we should have, the commission should be not in politics, and so we should have debates for that. And so all these things are debatable. That's why there are problems, and we want to hear what your solutions are. So thank you for all the good that you are doing, and I think it's possible people should have visions, and they should be able to explain this properly in debates, and that way you're not misquoted, and you're judged based on what you say and do. So thank you much for what you're doing. Continue the good work.
Yeah, thank you. Barbara Weiss, is it Weiss, is that right?
Good morning. I'm Barbara Weiss from Hilltown Township, Penridge School District. And just as a new school board director candidate, on item 2, number A, it looks like this has been going on for a while. I'm glad to see that there's services being provided to our students, but I'd just like to know what those services are. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Beth Curcio?
Good morning. I'm going to start with 1A, and my question is, why are you using the library to ban the books and the attack on the central buck system? I'm gonna take the ban the books part out. Okay, the second one I have is 5B, Pennsylvania Commission of Crime and Delinquency in Harrisburg, $3 million. Could you explain this and what you mean by gun violence? Is that by the criminals, or is that by, infringing on our Second Amendment rights? Then then number 12B, okay? I'm kind of confused of why is this a California firm? And also in here, who do you consider and what do you consider a public nuisance? Is that going to be the people that come to the commissioners' meetings? Is that going to be the domestic parents? As Diane laughs. I wish you guys could see Diane on video because it's pretty pathetic. Then the other one is agenda, the regular agenda, 17A, authorize the county solicitor to enter memorandum of understanding of joint privilege agreement with the district attorney. Could you please explain that? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lori Katz?
Good morning. My questions are 3B under corrections, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. What does opioid response funding entail, and what is MAT? On 5B, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, can you explain the $3 million that is allocated for, quote, approved gun violence investigation and prosecution grant award? And I have a question on 7A, B, and C. County is listed as 100% responsible for the bridge repairs totaling $2,583,000. Is any of this money that is being spent coming from the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill? Next question is 8A. Approve amendment to the, quote, rules and regulations governing individual and community on-lot sewage disposal systems. What is the problem that's occurring with the county regarding the rules and regulations governing individual and community on-lot disposal systems? What are you having an issue with? What is the specific rule that you're amending? Also, what is the amendment change that you're instituting? In other words, what's the wording change? 9D, approve contract to provide shared housing assistance for 620 $1,314. What's the specific, or who is the specific population that's being served, and what type of housing is this? 10B. Approve Human Services Block Grant Plan Submission for $33,210,026. What are the human services that you are distributing this money to? 12B. What is considered a public nuisance claim by definition by the county? And why is the county partnering with a San Francisco law firm instead of a Pennsylvania-based law firm? And lastly, 17A. Authorize the county solicitor to enter memorandum of understanding and joint privilege agreement with the DA. Please explain what this means, and is this for a specific case or in general? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Liz, is it Yaus or Yaus?
Hi, I'm Liz Yaus from Northampton Township. I have a question about 13B, functional pathways of Knoxville, Tennessee, in the amount of over $5,000 to approve a contract to provide physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech language therapy and services to residents. I'm not sure why someone in Tennessee is going to be providing these services, so if somebody could explain that. Also, I noticed 9A, there's the Bucks County Opportunity Council approving a contract increase and extension of CDBG-CV funding to provide interim sheltering and support housing services due to COVID-19 pandemic, if somebody could explain that. And also that brings up another question that I wanted to ask. In the February 1st meeting, a gentleman made a comment about the efficacy of the COVID vaccine and the mandate that the county employees had to get the vaccine. Sorry? So I was just wondering the status of that mandate at the moment. Since I have limited time, I'll only be able to bring up some sources of information so that people can do their own research about the efficacy of the vaccine. In particular, it's this book, Cause Unknown, the Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022. It goes through all these young people, ages 18 to 24, who've passed away from the COVID vaccine. Also, there is a New York Post article by Dr. Marty McCary, who is a professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. It's the 10 myths told by COVID experts and now debunked. And one of them in particular is myocarditis from the vaccine is less common than the infection. He cites all of his sources where he gets his information. And he says that there is many well-designed studies that say that this is the case. He says, we now know that myocarditis is 6 to 28 times more common after the COVID vaccine than after the infection among ages 16 to 24-year-olds, and tens of thousands of children likely got myocarditis from a vaccine.
Thank you. Andy Warren?
Morning, Commissioners. I have a couple items. One of some have been spoken to. I was just asking a little different way. One was the date corrected. I appreciate that. Item 3A. Today, the one that was corrected suggests $4 million plus to provide preventive maintenance for the Department of Corrections and Youth Center. On January 4th, we had a exactly same worded item. The cost on January 4th for 3 months was $331,700. Today's item is $4 million some for 3 years. Not being the mathematician, I think there's about a $50,000 difference in those prices per year, and I'm asking, not telling, but asking if that's accurate. And should the prices be the same, why the changes? Item 13B. I too had the question about the Tennessee firm, $5 million for a firm in Tennessee. Now that could be where their main office is and the employees are in fact Bucks County. But my question is, this isn't a new service. Was there a group that did this before, closer than Tennessee, and how were their prices? And my last point has to do with personnel, the personnel agenda items 26 to 32. What does a special counsel from the solicitor's office do? And are benefits included in this? And do we still have equal work for equal pay? The woman who is assuming the solicitor's position will be paid $140,000. The man who is leaving the solicitor's position will be paid $155,000 for doing the same work, I assume. So the question all is, do benefits come with this special counsel position? Is it to allow someone to run for a state office or county dollars?
Okay, thank you. All right. Appreciate everyone kind of focusing on issues for the, we'll try and get to answers to all these. So in terms of, we'll start kind of at the beginning, and there were quite a few people who kind of talked about the same issue. So Mr. Duffy talked about Bridge 226, Durham Township, concerned about the design. We did have a conversation with Mr. Duffy, myself, the COO, and our Deputy Director of General Services. The bridge is being rehabilitated, not reconstructed, so it currently has a center pier design. That's not changing. What is changing, and the engineers, we're talking to Mr. Connolly from General Services, what is changing is the design of that center pier is being changed to recognize the fact that debris can be pushed downstream as it's coming to the bridge. It can sort of get into the culverts. So the design is being changed to try and divert, that debris as much as possible. The county is, aware of the issue, and we put it kind of on our regular schedule to make sure we go out there periodically. But the property on the side, we know there's a property owner who's adjacent to this bridge who purchased the property, which is in a floodplain. So it's sort of, if he purchased property in the floodplain that does flood occasionally, that may not just really necessarily be just because of the bridge design. But we have taken into account, and we do have to kind of move forward on this bridge rehabilitation. So Ms. Feast asked about drug and alcohol services in schools, and I see Ms. Rosati from our Drug and Alcohol Commission is here. Would you mind just kind of addressing that question, what this specific agenda item is touching on?
course. Commissioners, the student assistance
Mr. Zadi,
program
I'm sorry,
is-
it's probably easier if you come to that way and get you on camera.
The student assistance program is a 30-year-old program that's supported through the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Can you raise that, I'm sorry, microphone a little bit closer, sorry.
Are you able to hear me okay? I'll be louder. The student assistance program is roughly a 30-year-old project that is supported through the Pennsylvania Department of Education as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol programs. It focuses on at-risk youth. As you know, we've expanded the student assistance program over the past 2 years, where we are braiding funding in recognition of youth who may have not only substance use concerns, but mental health concerns as well. So the Drug and Alcohol Commission and the Department of Behavioral Health Developmental Programs work together to assist youth who are in our schools to just make sure that they have the success that they need and all the resources that they need to move forward. We help them to identify any potential concerns, provide free of charge drug and alcohol or mental health assessment, and support to those youth.
Okay. All right, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, questions about 1A, the Bucks County Free Library approve a contract to develop and implement programs and services for older adults. That's something working through the Area Agency on Aging. Do you want to comment on that, Ms. Neff?
Thanks, Commissioner. The Area Agency on Aging ensures that the library has materials, DVDs, available to people who want to access it about aging throughout the life cycle. So it's $1,500, and there's also some community programming that's supported by that.
Okay, thank you. All right, a couple of questions about 5B, which is a district attorney item. Mr. Weintraub, you want to comment on the $3 million in revenue you're bringing into the county?
Is it okay if I speak from my seat?
It's fine, sure.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay, great. We applied for and were successful in getting an approximately $3 million grant to fight gun crime. We do this not by ourselves, but in the entire region. And frankly, I got the idea from Montgomery County, but the federal government made available hundreds of millions of dollars, which then passed through PCCD, and we were quite successful in getting this grant. This has been a priority for my administration, probably for the past year or two, but certainly in this 4 years of my administration, and we have already hit the ground running. We haven't waited for the grant, but this grant will allow us to more vigorously investigate and prosecute not only crimes committed with guns, but straw purchases in which a person that is legally allowed to purchase a gun then passes that gun on or sells that gun to somebody that is not legally allowed to possess that gun. And the data essentially shows that those are the guns that are primarily used to commit these violent crimes that we read and hear so much about. So this is something that I'm quite proud of. We are rolling out implementation every day. And even very recently, we just had a case where we prosecuted in a jury trial a guy that committed essentially 17 straw purchases. And these were investigated by resources utilizing this gun grant. That's but one example, but much more to come. Thank you.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. My apologies, I should have refreshed my screen. There was one additional sign up for agenda, so we'll let Mr. McLean, Robert McLean speak, and then we'll kind of get back to our answers. Apologize for that, Mr. McLean.
Robert McLean, Milford Township, Bucks County. I would like to commend you for attending to the infrastructure here in the county, the 3 bridges. I know that there are some issues with local townships, but barring that, that's something that is very helpful for all of us, especially with some of the conditions of roads. As far as the Health Department, under 8, it was dealing with an amendment to disposal. And my question is, how are residential sand mounds impacted by this amendment? Somebody else asked that question. Additionally, when you go to 12B, Law Department, and you're talking about the public nuisance claim, what is the definition of a public nuisance for these purposes? Secondly, A17A under the regular agenda. We're looking at that memorandum of agreement between the DEA and County Council. Why is that agreement necessary? Now, having looked, and this is related because it's budget, I have looked over your budget a bit, and I am dealing with, it's a 2023 budget. Now, 37% of your revenues come from grants. What special conditions are imposed upon the county in order to receive these grants? I'm sure each of them have different conditions. How may I obtain or at least view a copy of these grants? Are block grants audited for use of funds? I think you have a lot of discretion with block grants, but is there any agency like the GAO or the Pennsylvania Auditor General that comes in here to review your use of funds for block grants, as well as categorical grants? Are they audited by any organization? I don't believe that your financial auditors do that, but I may be mistaken. I think I'll save the rest of my comments for the next round. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Appreciate Mr. Weintraub going through his explanation. A couple of questions about 12B, which is from the Law Department. Mr. Khan, I'll ask you to touch on that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll begin just, there were, I think, 3 questions or comments about this. I'll begin by the question about the law firm. We do list San Francisco as their main office. It's a national firm, Robbins Geller, that has offices in the Philadelphia suburbs, New York, Chicago, DC, and other parts of the country. They are a firm that has been doing business with Bucks County for many years. That relationship began before the current administration, and that relationship began when that firm began to monitor the investment of the retirement fund that Bucks County employees have all paid into. I believe just this morning, one of those attorneys appeared before the retirement board to offer or provide information and counsel concerning some of the matters that board considered, and I believe the board actually voted to authorize Robbins Geller to continue with their efforts to provide advice and potentially legal action. When we talk about those kinds of legal matters, we're talking about protecting the investments that the county has made for its retirees. And then back to this question about what is a public nuisance and what does it mean to enter into a joint prosecution agreement. Sure. The question about what is a public nuisance. A public nuisance is defined in Pennsylvania law as, to really boil it down to the basics, a significant harm that impacts a large group of people. And it impacts their health or their welfare or their safety. And so I can give a couple of very specific examples of where we have identified in the past public nuisances that the county believed should be identified as such and brought into court. And in both of those cases, the county went outside of the law department and really went outside Bucks County to make sure that we could find lawyers with the resources and the expertise to bring those cases, and then beyond that, to do so on terms that were favorable to the county. So the first example I would give would be the opioid litigation that actually began before this board took office. And the idea there was that the widespread addiction, the suffering, the expenditure of taxpayer dollars to deal with an opioid epidemic here in Bucks County, the past board believed that that rose to the level of a public nuisance, and I think this board would agree. And county governments all throughout America agreed with that, and that led to the filing of these lawsuits against Purdue Pharma, against Endo, against the big distributors. And what we have seen over time is that those lawsuits had merit. It was right to bring those claims. It was right to declare those actions a public nuisance. And so that was a series of claims that came back to this idea of a public nuisance, and the county brought its claims, and separately the district attorney brought his claims. A second example I can give had to do when the manufacturers of aqueous firefighting foam sold their products to law enforcement, to people who had no idea what was actually in those firefighting foams that were being used to put out fires. And what we eventually learned about years later, when people started having health problems, people who were living near areas where there were a lot of fires and then fires being put out, places like firefighting training facilities like the one we have in Doylestown, places like military bases like there was in the Willow Grove and Horsham area. What we started finding out is that these fire extinguishers, these fire fighting foam chemicals, actually had these chemicals inside them that could never be destroyed. They're called forever chemicals. And those chemicals got into our water, got into areas of Bucks County, which meant people couldn't fish, people couldn't safely drink their water. And so this board came to the decision that that's a public nuisance too, that threatens the health and safety and welfare of the people of Bucks County. And separately, the district attorney came to the same conclusion. The district attorney, as a Pennsylvania DA, has very special powers, which I know he has been very judicious about using to make sure that he brings appropriate cases in ways that do not endanger the strength and validity of that law. And so in that instance, because of bipartisan and goodwill support between the elected officials, the commissioners, and the district attorneys, in that instance, the county spoke with one voice. In that instance, it was just over a year ago, I think it was about a year and 2 weeks ago, that the district attorney and Commissioner Harvey and myself stood with others to announce that the county was going to do something about this, and brought a public nuisance claim, and in this case, speaking for the DA, the district attorney brought a consumer protection claim, and those came together in one complaint, and it was very powerful. We have, from time to time, sought the commissioner's authorization for these engagements so that a firm can provide legal advice and potentially bring legal action. Sometimes those firms can act very, very quickly. Sometimes those cases take a long time because of scientific studies and other matters. So the board's vote today, if the board approves this authorization, would authorize this firm would authorize me to effectuate that legal service agreement, and if there is a claim, that we would be litigating that jointly with the district attorney, would ratify anything that we have done up until now. On behalf of the county, we would be paying that firm nothing out of pocket, no kind of hourly fee like we do with other cases where we have to engage outside legal counsel. But in these cases, in all of them, we have negotiated contingency-based rates, meaning that the county does not pay anything unless the county has a recovery, and only then will the law firm be reimbursed for its expenses and then receive a portion of that recovery. I can speak, having done this work just before coming to the county, that a fairly standard contingent rate is 33%. And so we are very pleased that we are able to present for the commissioners an agreement that not only will authorize the evaluation and litigation of these kinds of cases with this firm, but to do so on terms that will be very, very advantageous, favorable to the county.
Thank you, appreciate that. A couple questions about the corrections items. Ms. Kratz is here. Talking about the Aramark, question about Aramark and the rate for 3 months versus the rate for 3 years. I don't know if you have any.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. On the Aramark question, the February agenda items, that was an extension. The new contract today did go out to RFP. It's a 3-year contract. It's going to provide 24-hour services to the DOC buildings, which we've expanded out at a new women's center, the youth center. So that did go out to RFP. That was awarded. There is definitely an increase per month. That's to reflect the cost of labor, materials, and the cost of doing business. Again, so we contract with Aramark to handle our facilities. It's a 24/7 operation. In a jail, when heat goes down in the middle of January, you have to have that corrected and fixed very quickly. Item 3B, the roughly $500,000 revenue grant for the opioid response funding. This is to enhance our services that we're providing inside the jail and the work release facility, evidence-based support for our justice-involved folks with opioid use disorders. And Bucks County has, along with all the other counties in southeastern Pennsylvania especially, there's an opioid problem. Someone had asked what MAT is. That's medication-assisted treatment. There are 3 types of medications that are out there that we use inside the clinical setting in the jail, as well as continuation on the street to help these folks. That's combined with cognitive behavioral therapy. It's more effective when there's group therapy to change the way you think and change your behaviors. And that's not going away. So we're reaching out. We're applying for these grants aggressively. And it is evidence-based. There was a question about following up on grants. We do have to submit data and things like that. There's some checks and balances, and that's through Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency.
Okay, thank you. Questions about the bridges that we're working on. 3 bridges that are being, one in Durham Township, one in East Rock Hill, one in West Rock Hill. Believe the funding is mostly coming, it's state funding, it's registration. Yeah, it's not funded through the infrastructure laws, it's come through state funding. A lot of it, the registration, when you register your car, you have to pay registration fee. Some of that money comes to counties to help do work like this. So there was a couple of questions about the Health Department item, rules and regulations governing individual and community on-lot sewage disposal systems. This is dealing mostly with septic systems. Dr. Damsker just can touch on this. It was specifically a question about sand mounds, residential sand mounds. I don't know if you can comment on that specifically or not.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, this is extremely minor changes. It has nothing to do with any of the types of systems like sand mounds. This is just in the penalty phase aspect at the end. One was literally changing the pronouns from his to their, because it talks about the agents of the health department in his duty, when we have many women in the sewage program also, so it goes to their instead of his. And the second one, a little more important, in the misdemeanor offense section, we removed a sentence that said, normally when we cite somebody, if you get a second summary citation, it goes to a misdemeanor, but the misdemeanor section only talked about sewage haulers being able to be getting misdemeanors. So we took that sentence out, so anyone who gets a second summary offense can now be cited for a misdemeanor. Those are the only 2 things we changed. It was extremely minor, but because these are regulations, we had to do it the appropriate way through the Board of Health and the commissioners.
Right, thank you. Yeah, it's the Board of Health's job, among other things, to inspect septic systems and make sure that they're being treated properly, emptied properly. Services that empty septic systems, service septic systems, all have to do so in a manner that's safe, and the Health Department has those regulations. Thank you, appreciate that. In terms of 9, I lost my place, okay. Bucks County Opportunity Council increased the extension for the Community Development Block Grant, COVID variant funding to interim sheltering, supportive housing services. This essentially, the Opportunity Council is one of, if not the main nonprofit that helps us deal with the homeless situation in this county. So they work to help people find some kind of housing. Usually it's temporary, sometimes it's hotels, sometimes it's connected them to landlords who have rental space that's available, connected them to the Housing Authority in some occasions, working with them on helping them, very similar to what you heard from Mr. Kratz, working on making better decisions and hopefully getting them on their feet so they can get their lives in a place where they're not, having to worry as much about housing. That was the 9A. 9D is pretty much the shared housing with the YWCA. It kind of falls in the same category. So we're so with 10. Ms. Neff, do you want to comment on the $33 million in revenue, the services that goes to, and obviously a major part of your funding?
Yes, thanks, Commissioner. So the Human Services Block Grant really makes a lot of the work possible throughout the Human Services Division. We've received this grant for over a decade, and it supports all types of individuals throughout Bucks County. Last fiscal year, we supported over 10,000 individuals and children. So it can range the services from early intervention for very young children to supported employment for individuals with intellectual disabilities, outpatient mental health therapy, supported housing for individuals with serious mental health conditions, peer support. So, and we have a number of partners that we work with to provide these services, ranging from Lenape Foundation, Bucks County Opportunity Council, Penn Foundation, Pendel, and every year we are required to have a public hearing about this block grant. Our public hearings are, we're setting those dates now for the month of May, and the public is welcome to attend and hear about how we utilize these funds and also make recommendations for us.
Okay, thank you. For 13B, a couple questions about 13B about using functional pathways at Neshaminy Manor. To begin with, one of the speakers said it was $5,000. It's actually $5 million. I'll go to Dr. Damsker, because he does oversee Neshaminy Manor. Why Knoxville, Tennessee? I'm assuming this was bid. This is something that, if somebody local was better and cheaper, we'd be going with them.
Absolutely, yeah. We went through the full RFP process. Previously, we still are, well, until this changes, we're using Genesis, which is a national company. Many of these companies are national with headquarters elsewhere. Depending on what happens with the staff, some of the same staff, may be moving over to the company. So the people working here will all be local people. It's just, as Mr. Warren pointed out, this is just a matter where the headquarters is. We're actually getting we're going to be getting good services. There's some differences in the vendors, so we're happy with the new choice that was made. But yeah, that's exactly why it's a Tennessee company.
Okay, thank you. Questions about special counsel. The county has had special counsels before, even before we got here. In terms of special counsels do specific duties as asked. We had for a while a special counsel whose job was specifically to work with the prison. He is now working on the court side, doing work on bail reduction issues. And for attorneys, various attorneys, including attorneys for row officers, benefits are included in that package. And I'll just go to our Deputy CFO, Mr. Rice, just to talk about, in terms of grants, obviously there's a variety of grants the county gets from different places in terms of requiring paperwork and checks and balances. You just want to make a brief comment on that, how that works?
Yeah, most grants require some kind of quarterly or annual reporting. Some of the larger grants will have the Auditor General come out to take a look at how the funding was spent, how it was utilized. But usually there's also in-house auditing taking place to make sure the funding is being spent correctly and how it should be used.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. I know there were a couple questions about 17, but since that's on regular agenda, we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so if there are no more comments or questions from board members, we're taking a look at the consent agenda, which is the minutes of March 1st, and resolutions 1 through 16. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, regular agenda. Item 17, Law Department, authorize county solicitor and to enter a memorandum of understanding and joint privilege agreement with the district attorney. Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm happy to speak to that, and I certainly would defer to the district attorney if there's anything else he wants to add or amend to my comments. But as I said about a month ago or so when I announced I was stepping down, the area that I was most excited about to continue to help out where I can is in this area of affirmative litigation. We talked about a specific agreement with a specific law firm, but I am very, very heartened by the working relationship that I've been fortunate to be a part of between the law department and the district attorney's office for the last few years. District Attorney Weintraub was actually the first elected official in Bucks County I ever met before I even met the commissioners. And that was when I was in private practice, speaking to public officials about the ability for them to use their powers to bring these kinds of lawsuits. And the DA was already ahead of the curve on these issues and has been exercising that power. I should step back and say that although the row officers like the district attorney are independently elected from the commissioners, the law department through the county solicitor does represent row officers in various litigations when actions are brought against them or there are subpoenas or things of that nature. And so there already, before this board arrived, there already were sort of attorney-client discussions that would occur between the DA and the solicitor's office. But as we have continued to work together on areas where perhaps our consumer protection department has been investigating things, or we've identified areas where we can have new innovations. I recall very fondly when we presented to this board the first ever lemon law for used cars in Pennsylvania, and both the Attorney General's office and District Attorney Weintraub appearing in person spoke in favor of that initiative because of the potential for good that could come about through those initiatives. In legal terms, that's called a common interest. And the common interest between the District Attorney's office and the law department in looking at these kinds of issues where consumers might be hurt or the county might be hurt in some way, the common interest there is the good of the people of Bucks County. And so we talked earlier about having to go to these big law firms where we have to pay a contingent fee in cases where we can get them to invest in a case where it's going to make some economic sense, where maybe millions or billions of dollars might be at issue. But a lot of the stories that the commissioners have heard, that Mike Bannon spoke about when we passed the lemon law, those are stories just about everyday people who were mistreated by one business. And those may not be cases that we can convince a San Francisco law firm to come to Bucks County to take on. Those are cases that the commissioners have encouraged us to see if we can do something about, that the district attorney might do something about on the criminal or civil side. And so having those discussions in an open and transparent way, it's important for us to make sure that we can share information in a way that is protected, so that if these cases do go to litigation, that the privilege that we have is one that is recognized. So really what this item is, commissioners, is really putting down in writing what has in some ways been an oral working agreement and an understanding with the DA's office and the law department. But I think it is a very positive sign on this day and age of the ongoing bipartisan commitment in this county to good government and to standing up to address harms and stand up for everyday people. And so with that, unless the DA has anything else to add, I hope that answers the questions.
I think you hit it on the head where we have a common interest in public safety. It's something we were doing before. We've been doing this for years, but this memorializes our ability to speak freely and candidly and have that be considered attorney work product, which wouldn't be discoverable down the road. I would point out two important restrictions that were important to me. And one is that this would only be binding on me, not my successors. And number two, this doesn't restrict or fetter me in my ability to seek additional protection for the public under the auspices of public safety. In other words, by me entering this agreement, the county commissioners, the law department can't say, oh no, you can't do something that you feel is in the public interest. And that was very important to me, of course. But once the law department agreed to write those two things in there, I thought that this was beneficial, and I do think that when we unite in common interests under the name of public safety, that we can accomplish some better things in certain instances as a force multiplier.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, appreciate that. I'm gonna ask if we can vote on this one separately. Just for, we need to take a little bit of a aside right after this, nothing major, but, well, sort of something major, but a little bit not too consequential. But for item 17, the Law Department authorizing the county solicitor to enter a memorandum of understanding with the DA. Is there a motion to approve item 17?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Gonna just take, not a recess, but pause, divert for a second here. Earlier in the meeting, we recognized people who had been longtime employees. And we gave out got a little bit of attention to those people who were here. One of the gentlemen who was named is now here. He wasn't here earlier, so I just wanted to pause a little bit to recognize Mr. Williams from Department of Corrections. If you want to come forward, please. Mr. Williams has been working for 20 years for Bucks County Department of Corrections. We appreciate everything he does. Well, it's up to you. If you want to say something if you want to. But.
Nobody ever wants to.
Okay, thank you. A lot of people who do good work in difficult circumstances in this county, different offices. Department of Corrections, certainly has the respect of the employees, the rest of the employees of this county for the work they do. So, all right, jumping back to regular agenda, item 18, Park and Recreation. We do have here Ms. Angie Nagel is here from our Park and Rec Department to talk a little bit about this grant that she is getting for a comprehensive plan.
Thank you. So good morning. Today for your consideration is a grant award from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources that will aid the county in funding this very exciting project, which is a comprehensive recreation, parks, and open space plan. I would like to take the next couple moments and give a high-level overview. 2 or 3 minutes top, so bear with me. I know it's been a long meeting. So what exactly are we doing here? We are developing a forward-thinking, creative, actionable, comprehensive plan that will position Bucks County as a leader in parks and recreation. Why should we be doing this? We are the 3rd largest county-managed park system in the state of Pennsylvania. This plan will give us a dynamic process This plan will be a dynamic process with the end result being a living document that will guide our decision-making and our priorities for the next 10 years. Next slide, please. A little bit about the Department of Parks and Recreation, for those that aren't familiar. Like I said, we're the 3rd largest county-managed park system in the state. We manage over 9,000 acres, and that acreage includes lakes, streams, river access, playgrounds, parks, tennis centers, pools, recreation facilities, historic sites, environmental education centers, and unique assets such as a historic airfield, horse park, and of course the tile works. Next slide. So why are we doing this now? What's the urgent need? No surprise to anyone, over the past 3 years, parks have become a haven for the country, for the county, and we have experienced unprecedented usage. Parks serve as community gathering spaces and serve us not only for physical wellness, but also our mental health. It is so, so crucial that we prioritize our park system. Another reason why this plan is necessary now is to align the county with our statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. Next slide. This grant is being funded, as I mentioned before, by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, as well as the county. So how did we get here? Where are we going? What's our timeline? Those important questions. About 18 months ago, the Department of Parks and Recreation started working on a grant application for DCNR. A special thank you to the Bucks County Planning Commission, who aided our department and really facilitated focus groups that were important in submitting a very strong application. Those focus groups incorporated not only the Parks and Recreation Board, but county staff. Our grant application was scored very highly, and we were awarded the project by Secretary Dunn in September of 2022, and we were given the green light to proceed this January. Right now, we're in the process of finalizing our steering committee, which will be comprised of county staff and important stakeholders, some of which were here today, including Visit Bucks, the Bucks County Conservation District, park board members, and members of the public. We'll spend this spring finalizing an RFP and selecting a project consultant who will lead this. Then the fun begins. So the project consultant will do some necessary benchmarking and really focus on public participation. This is a plan for the public to be heavily involved. This is your park system, and we want your voice to be included. The county will receive a draft plan. We anticipate sometime in the fall of 2024. Next slide. I think it's important to highlight some of the priorities that were identified when we did the initial focus groups. These will be included in an RFP, and some more will be developed, but I think these are the most important. So how do we stand against our peers, regionally and nationally? An assessment of our current conditions of our facilities, our parks, and our trails. Strategies for our sound land and water stewardship. Realistic financial strategies. Ideas are great, but how are we going to fund all of these projects and all of these priorities? Accessibility. Parks should be accessible for all, regardless of physical limitations and financial ability. And recommendations for sustainability, best practices, materials, programs, and amenities in our park system. Next slide. Going back to public participation. So how can the public get involved in this plan? Right now, even before a project consultant has been selected, you can prepare to have your voice be heard by registering for a Civic Rec account on our website. It's there that you'll receive information about future surveys, project notices, public meetings, interviews, and really you can be part of this planning process. And also, as always, you can follow us on social media for those surveys and project notices. We really would like the public to view this as their plan and their voice in our park system. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions about the grant, the plan, or our park system.
Okay, comments or questions for Ms. Nagel? No? Appreciate the work you've done coming in and the park board as well. I know everybody's looking forward to it. All right, so for item 18, which is the approve the contract to provide a comprehensive recreation, park, and open space plan. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, personnel actions, the commissioners list. Any comments or questions regarding the commissioners list? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Board appointments, we have two appointments to the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission. Lindsay Gladish, hoping I did that one right. New appointment, her term will end 3/31/26. Mr. Marlon Williams, new appointment to finish out the term of Ms. Anne Marie Murphy. That term will end 12/1/2025. And for the MHDP Board, Dr. Tracy London, term correction, the term should end 4/15/25. Is there a motion for those movements?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For other civics, $2,500 contribution to the Bucks County Health Improvement Partnership, $4,000 contribution to the Washington's Crossing Boy Scouts of America, $2,000 to Bucks Beautiful, $1,000 to Quakertown Community Day, $1,000 to the Youth Orchestra, or excuse me, $3,000 to the Youth Orchestra of Bucks County. Is there a motion for those contributions?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Chief Operating Officer, Ms. McKevitt.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. In the spirit of time here, I'll just make mention of one upcoming event. The Household Hazardous Waste Program is first one is April 1st at the Bucks County Community College in the Lower Bucks or the Newtown campus. Registration is not required any longer, so that's good news. Folks can please visit the county website for information on the types of materials that can be accepted, because we cannot accept electronics at this site. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Commissioner. Just two updates about executive sessions. The board had its standing executive session yesterday with staff and legal counsel to discuss personnel matters, collective bargaining negotiations, and to receive confidential legal advice about both pending and prospective litigation. Additionally, the board met in an executive session on March 9th to discuss a real estate matter. And that completes our report.
Thank you. All right, moving on to brief public comments. Ed Mackhouse?
Ed Mackhouse again from Buckingham. I'd like to go into the legal thing. I think that's where the contingency agreement, like for the opioids, they got money like 33% for, say, prosecuting for too much opioids. I'd like to say that one of the reasons why we have so much opioid problems now is that it's illegal to give drugs to child or have troubles, different reasons. The people that believe drugs are the answers to all the problems. Where in the Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. I see parents being prosecuted, teachers being prosecuted for trying to restrain and control children. I went to a court and watched the judge sentence the person back to jail for not paying child support. He says, how can I pay child support if I'm in jail? In the Bible, they talk about whipping. Maybe the person would be willing to take some lashes rather than going to jail and not be able to support his children. So I think we need to, a politician should come up in here and look at the issues and say, what can you do? How are you going to change things to make things better? I don't think drugs are all the answers. As far as the lawyers, I think if we investigate the vaccine industry, Epoch Times newspaper, EPOCH, says about all these people forced to take vaccines and a lot of healthy people dying. I think that should be investigated, and maybe they should be sued, some of these billionaires that made money by mandating, violating the constitutional rights of people to force them to take vaccines. So I think we should, politicians, I'm not a politician, but they should have debates and judge. And Josh Shapiro says it's better than Wolf. Let's go see how he would deal with it and respond to the right to know request. Thank you very much.
Okay. Beth Curcio?
Beth Curcio, Warminster, Pennsylvania. We have requested over and over, and you never give us an answer, so I'd like an answer from all three commissioners here. We want a public meeting in the evening, especially with inflation. So many people cannot get here. You can take the time to go to the Rainbow Room and go to a drag show and get a photo op, Mr. Harvey. And Diane, you could go there where minors were, but you can't hold a public hearing for the people of Bucks County. This is not enough time, and many, many people cannot make it. So you seem to think that we're not important, but that is. I'd also consider when you say public nuisance, Pfizer and Moderna are a public nuisance. Many people have died. The book she brought up was by Ed Dowd, who was a darling of BlackRock. He crunched the numbers with disabilities, deaths, insurance claims, and everything else, and proved his point. How many millions of people think it's normal for young people just to drop dead on a field? And here at Bucks County, who mandated their employees to get a vaccine? We have no say over our own health. I don't believe in vaccines. I never have. I had the right in Pennsylvania not to get my children vaccinated. So did my mother. How dare the counties step in and tell us what to do with our children? We know best for our children. So I also want to know that answer. Why can we not have a public hearing at least once a month? We do not need to sit through all of these things of employee recognition and everything else. It's just not, you guys all get paid. We don't get paid for coming here. We pay for parking, we pay for gas, and we park pretty far. On a cold day, it's not that easy. So I'm asking you again, and Jean, I want you to answer this too. Why can't we have an evening public meeting? Thank you.
Lori Katz. Excuse me, Lori Katz.
Last week, I asked you to respond to specific nonpartisan concerns. You ignored my request as usual. I am a Bucks County resident asking about pertinent topics of concern. You have been non-responsive. Why the intentional exclusion? Here are some ignored topics. Multiple people have suggested a staff increase for the Office of Open Records to fulfill the uptick in FOIA requests for county transparency. Silence. Multiple people have requested you create access for people that work during the day by holding a monthly evening town hall such that residents can bring up topics and have a discussion. For example, to better understand the 5G you want to install on county buildings, what research has been done concerning health implications and the cost-benefit analysis before decisions are made that could affect our community's health and well-being? Silence. Why so much money constantly going to CareerLink? Bucks County unemployment is at 3%. What valuable programs are you choosing not to fund that can benefit our good citizens? I asked that question last week. Silence. At the September 2022 meeting, you lowered our agenda comment time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes to afford an opportunity for more people to speak. However, there were fewer citizens speaking. I have requested those 2 minutes be added to public comment time instead. Silence. I'd be willing to bet that the residents of Bucks County would like answers on these questions too. Anybody listening, one day you might bring a concern to the commissioners that affects you directly. You will come here and speak to have your grievances addressed. Unless you are a large political donor or a relative of the commissioners, your concern will probably be ignored. Remember that when you vote and choose commissioners this fall. Thank you.
Andy Warren.
Three quick points. I do not endorse bringing back the whipping post. Second, in light of the March 15th Ides of March date, I have come to praise Caesar, not to bury Caesar. I had occasion, since we were here last, to need access to some old records. I called the office of Ms. Murphy and was provided the opportunity to seek the information by she and her staff, and my county tax dollars were at work on that case. I absolutely positively underscore, and you have said so and continue to say so, you all ought to have quarterly, periodic public meetings. It's not a new concept. It's a great idea, and take it out to the different parts of the county for all the reasons that they've said. I totally endorse it. And the other suggestion, not that anybody asked, the MHMR, or the drug and alcohol explanation we got today, confused me a little bit, and I say me, not anyone else. But I think what the person was asking was, are we commingling drug and alcohol money with MHMR money? Anyway, that's what I got. I'm not suggesting that's what the person asked, but that was the perception. I think it would be interesting, good, if perhaps the opening act for the commissioners meeting one morning was MHMR versus, not versus, commingling drug and alcohol.
Okay. Jamie Walker?
Hi. I wanted to let the community know that I'm still being sued in the Court of Common Pleas because Diane Marseglia does not want to release her emails from her second email account, which I already won in the Office of Open Records. This abuse of power wastes taxpayers' money. Under Joe Kahn's leadership, the law department is asking a judge to make the entire state of Pennsylvania less transparent for everyone, Democrats and Republicans. I know you want to run for Attorney General, so if anyone wants to primary Mr. Kahn, you can use my case, because nobody wants a less transparent Pennsylvania, do they? Another thing under Joe Kahn's leadership is when you went to, I don't think the attorneys knew how to actually file an appeal. It took them 390 pages of paper to file the appeal in the Common Pleas Court. It's a waste of taxpayers. That was a waste of trees. I'm also wondering if Mr. Kahn is telling people to delay my case to help in the commissioner's election. Maybe we can look into that. During the last meeting I attended, Commissioner Harvey refused to let me speak because somebody else signed me in. Now, this rule that was fabricated by Commissioner Harvey, or under Joe Kahn's leadership, was illegal because when did the commissioners vote to not let somebody sign you in for public comment? Was there ever a public vote on that? Or were your arbitrary rules just put in place because you didn't want to let me talk? So basically, the county, the highest ranking politicians, you did not let me talk, you're suing me to hide emails, you had me followed around this building by a security guard, and this all happened because you illegally changed health guidance, which kept children home from school. It sounds like a communist country here.
Stephanie Weiser? Stephanie Weiser?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Weiser. I'm a resident of Buckingham, and I came here today to thank the commissioners for the excellent job that you're doing, that I intend to support you when it comes to your election in both the primary and, of course, in the general election, and I am very hopeful that you will continue to be our commissioners. My next point is that I would like again, and today it's a perfect segue after what we've been listening to today with the Parks and Recreation and with Bucks Beautiful. I think often about what we do with our trash. And I look at the street and I see how many people fill their trash cans up without any thought about where the trash is going. I am not aware of whether or not this is something that the Bucks County Commissioners can address. One of the things that I do personally is I compost my vegetable garbage, and I pay to have that composted. It doesn't go in my backyard. And I was wondering, I know there are other townships around the country that actually have composting available for their residents, and they take this garbage and they actually compost it. And one quick point I'd like to make is that a lot of methane gas comes from vegetable in landfills. And one of the things that we need to be aware of is our atmosphere and is the gases that we're putting into the atmosphere that are causing problems, as well as the problems that we have with water. But if it's within your purview to do something about having a composting program, that would be very well received, I believe. Thank you so much.
Priscilla Linden?
Good morning. Priscilla Linden from Upper Makefield. I want to thank the commissioners for continuing to support the Student Assistance Program. I was privileged to be one of the first teams trained, and it wasn't 30 years ago, it was in the mid-1980s in a school district in the neighboring county. The beauty of the Student Assistance Program that was first targeted to secondary schools was to intervene and prevent bad outcomes of drug, alcohol, and possibly suicide and related cases. The key to it was the team who was trained. In fact, it was trained by the benefit of seed money from the Freemason Society of Pennsylvania, who provided millions of dollars for teams all over the state to be trained, weeks training, including at least 2, sometimes more teachers, depending on the size of the school, counselors from the school, nurse from the school, and I was privileged to be the liaison administrator of the school, along with a community counseling agency who could identify, support, intervene, and work with families of students who were potentially in trouble. So it was a beautiful working system. It continues to this day. In fact, I think in 1995, it was a required program for schools in Pennsylvania. It has been extended to a preventive program for elementary schools called the Instructional Support Team. And I admire the fact that you are continuing to support this. It is jointly supported by government agencies, private firms, and counseling society. So thank you for continuing the support of this. Thank you.
Robert McLean?
Robert McLean, Milford Township. In light of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank failures, as well as probably Credit Suisse, what bank does the county use for their $245 million of cash and cash equivalents as of 12/31/21? Who administers the $1+ billion of employee pension fund? Are ESG, environmental, social, and governance funds, also known as woke funds, or investments, are any of those made with county funds? Are any of these investments with BlackRock or Vanguard? Next, in the budget, you have a $6 million contribution to the library. I'm aware on their website of the controversial books of Gender Queer and Lawn Boy and et cetera that have not been removed. I would support their removal. Are any of these funds for the library directly or indirectly used to promote Drag Queen Story Hour in the public libraries in Bucks County? And then finally, land preservation. I don't know what sway the county has over land preservation. I don't know if that's a township issue. However, I do know that in Montgomery County, a township has reversed their land preservation. I am wondering if that is possible in Bucks County. I would like to see land preserved, not preserved and then reversed. That's it. Thank you.
Just addressing a couple of the questions. Question's been asked a couple times about, the law department and right to know. The law department actually now is bigger than it used to be when we first came into office. So this county, when we approved the 5G contract, did address the 5G issues. And CareerLink, I'm not really sure why there continues to be this sort of desire to not help people find jobs, but not everyone is privileged enough to have good paying job and live in a nice kind of situation where they don't have to worry about that. There are still people in this county, and even if it's only 3%, it's still thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are looking for work. So in terms of answering questions, we spent a large chunk of today's meeting answering questions that were raised about the agenda. So I'm not really clear about that either. Well, I'm clear about it, but we'll just address it anyway. Composting, Ms. Weiser brought up in terms of composting. Yesterday, I was actually sitting on a meeting of the Ready for 100 committee here at the county. Our sustainability director, Mr. Doherty, is working on that climate action plan with Penn State University. And composting was actually a topic that came up, specifically focused on county operations, talking about places like the jail and the Chamonix Manor. There are some regulations, but it is something that we're focused on. The county doesn't have the ability to sort of mandate what municipalities do with composting. Every municipality is free to do what they want to do. But it is something we've kind of looked at. In fact, I think it was part of our transition plan back a couple of years ago, was to look at it. But it's something that's, we're thinking on it, but I appreciate you bringing it up. In terms of banks, I know the treasurer was here briefly, or before rather. Ms. Ballerini, she's the one who kind of, in terms of investments, our money is in several different banks, and she's in the process of, I think, actually finding a new bank. But
I'm thinking altogether, there may be 20 or 30 banks that we use.
So yeah, several. Mr. Rice can comment on that. For retirement fund, there is a retirement board. We actually met at 9:30 today. The retirement board consists of the 3 commissioners, the treasurer, and the controller. We're the ones who oversee the retirement fund for the county. There are investments with a variety of companies. BlackRock may be in there, I'm not sure. I think they are. They're a pretty large firm. There have been steps over the past several years, or past couple of years, to make sure that when we're investing in companies that are not engaged in child labor, are not connected to the Chinese Communist Party, are not responsible for vast amounts of pollution and environmental degradation. And in terms of land preservation reversal, depending on how what funds were used for land preservation, it's not, I think you can probably go back and not preserve it, but you'd have to pay the funds back, I think, something. Yeah, if there's an easement through the county, you're basically stuck. You can't really go backwards. I'm not really sure what the Montgomery County situation is. That could just be a township that just decided to spend their own money on something years ago and call it land preservation, and now they've changed their minds. So.
Can I just add something to the CareerLink? I think the most important thing to remember is we are working with businesses, and the businesses are having difficulty finding employees, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to help those businesses find the employees they need.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Shh. Excuse me. I'm not going to be yelling from the audience, please. Okay? All right, moving on to Commissioner comments. Commissioner DiGirolamo?
No comments this week. I'm good.
You want to, Commissioner Marcega, you want any comments from you?
I have no comments.
All right. Ms. Yass, I apologize, Ms. Yass.
Okay, 2 minutes isn't very long. I'll do my best. Here's some more information so people can do more research. What people don't know is that vaccines cannot be created if another solution exists. Therefore, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin had to be vilified so that the vaccine could be approved. Doctors were threatened to have their licenses revoked if they prescribed these 2 drugs that are off patent and very cheap. Other drugs are prescribed off-label as well. There's a website, FLCCC, the Frontline COVID-19 CriticalCare.com. Please check it out. It's by world-renowned physicians from all over the world. It has protocols that have widely been used to keep people with COVID out of hospitals, and this site has been, the doctors have been censored. Hydroxychloroquine is safe and has been used for decades in many tropical nations against malaria, and it's cheap. Therefore, it was censored. I know people who have safely taken ivermectin and to quickly and safely get them over COVID. In this book, again, Cause Unknown, Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022, there's a page called How to Use This Book, and it has some very interesting information, including how the pharma companies sponsor the majority of TV news programs. If we are skeptical of pharma companies for the opioid crisis, as we've talked about earlier, then we certainly should be skeptical of the pharmaceutical industry with regard to the COVID vaccine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank everybody for their work today. As you will notice, there are definitely a little bit more green in the room than usual. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day coming up this weekend or on Friday. And as I thought back, being, I guess, the only Irish commissioner at this point, although we have a pretty Irish COO and so a few other sons and daughters of Patrick and Bridget in the room. A couple things just to focus on. There's a story I started telling years ago, and I don't always like to tell the same story over and over again, but people always tell me how much they love the story, and so I'll tell it a little bit. I'll tell it in a minute, but just something to focus on as we talk about who we are as a country. In 1844, there were riots in Philadelphia. There was arson in Philadelphia. There were churches burned to the ground in Philadelphia. And those riots were led by, the term was nativists, essentially people who didn't like immigrants. The churches that were burned were Catholic churches, and they were populated mostly by Irish. The anti-Irish feeling in this country was incredibly strong and led to a great amount of violence and discrimination that lasted well into the 20th century. The sign, Help Wanted Nina, is a well-known mark of that time period. Nina standing for No Irish Need Apply. In other words, we need help here at this business. We need help at this factory, but if you're Irish, we don't want you. And so certainly that discrimination affected my family. And I tell the story because I think it's important for us to remember our history, which unfortunately not enough people do. There are very, very few groups that have come to this country that haven't faced discrimination. The Irish being ones that got tremendous amounts of it, but certainly not the only, and not always just people from Europe, obviously, still receive discrimination today. But as a country, we look now at how many people we have in this nation who are Irish. It is one of the biggest ethnic groups in the United States. I think German might be the only ethnicity that more people can trace themselves back to. But Irish is enormous, and it's so big, in fact, that many people are Irish and don't realize they're Irish because it's so far back in their family history. We overcame that discrimination as a country, and the people who are descendants of those Irish immigrants who came throughout our nation's history through the 1800s and into the 20th century and continue to come, have been successful. They've contributed to this country's birth and growth and protection And there's no reason to think other groups that move here will be any different. It's a shame that a lot of the discrimination that people's ancestors faced back in the 1800s, they now visit upon other groups just because they don't like them. So, and I noticed this came to my mind yesterday because it was reported by the FBI that hate crimes have risen dramatically over the past couple of years. And those hate crimes are focused on people not just with different religions, but ethnicities, orientations. And certainly it's not something we ever want to see here in this county or in this country. So people asked me about my tie today, a few people, and I noticed it is green, does have little shamrocks on it. It is actually from Ireland. Ireland's not necessarily known for making a lot of men's fashion. It's not one of their strengths, I guess, but it's a nice tie, and I like it. It was a gift, actually, from my parents. They visited Ireland many years ago. They left out of Newark Airport on a trip with some other members of the family and some members of their church as part of just one of organized trips, organized groups, bus trips around, okay? They left Newark Airport on September 10th, 2001. So they were in Ireland about 24 hours when the World Trade Center attack happened. My parents were not seasoned world travelers, nor were many of the people they were with, and their first instinct was, as excited as they were to have this trip to Ireland, both my parents have Irish ancestry, as excited as they were to do this trip with friends and family and how exciting it was going to be, they just wanted to come home. But, of course, we remember back to that time period, there were no flights coming back. Some of the people on the trip actually looked to booking cabins on a cruise liner, sailing back across the Atlantic, thinking they just wanted to be home. And when that feeling wore off, after some hours and when they realized how difficult it was going to be, some of them talked about flying into Canada and renting cars and could we do this, could we do that, how are we going to get back home, we just want to be home. The trip, of course, was ongoing. So as they journeyed around Ireland, what they saw really stunned them, which was tiny little cottages in the middle of the Irish countryside. The picturesque, exactly what you think, stone walls and the green fields and sheep, and a little white cottage with a thatched roof, and hanging out of the window, an American flag. When they got to Dublin, they couldn't get near the American embassy, not because of security, but because of the thousands and thousands and thousands of flowers and candles and teddy bears and everything else that you could imagine that the people of Ireland had brought because of the sadness they felt of what had happened to us as a country. The warmth they felt from the Irish people very quickly made them realize that if they couldn't be home in America, being in Ireland was probably the best place to be because of how they were received and because of just the bond they felt. And so it's always my memory. I haven't been to Ireland. I'd like to be able to go at some point, hoping I get there at some point. But, it's a story I think says a lot about what was possible in 2001 in terms of the feeling for this country, the emotions for this country, the togetherness that was there. I believe we can get there again. And I hope that we can, as a people, kind of rise above the anger, the hatred, the misinformation, the deliberate attempts to slander and slur our fellow Americans, because the world's watching us. And they want us to be the country we're supposed to be. And I believe we'll get there again, but not without some work. And hopefully, we can all make together a country that deserves the kind of feeling that the Irish people have for us on that day. So, wish everybody a happy St. Paddy's Day. Be safe. It is, as law enforcement officials call it, it is amateur hour for a lot of people. So be very cautious. Uber and Lyft are your friends. Put it on your phone now, if you don't have it already. But we want to make sure everybody has a great March 17th, but we want everybody to have a great March 18th, too. So appreciate everybody's time and energy, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?